delegate for the 2004 Democratic Convention and a member of the Electoral College for New York State in 2004. A graduate of SUNY Brockport with a dual bachelor's degree in history and African and Afro-American studies, Antoine also studied at the University of Ghana in Ghana, West Africa. He is the recipient of an honorary doctorate of laws degree from Medill College, and he's a graduate of the Leadership Buffalo class of 2001. In 2019, and ranked on the Swampole Power 200 as one of the most influential leaders in the real estate industry in the U.S. So we are very, very proud to have him. Antoine, the stage is yours.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I know we have, well, first let me start by thanking Susie for reaching out and asking me to come out to Connecticut. It's so beautiful. It's definitely off the beaten path, but I went to a small town college in Rockport, New York, so it's all good. So hopefully I'll make it back and make my plane on time, all that good stuff. But first let me just thank Susie. Really excited to be here, excited to be able to share with you all on how we make progress on this issue that sometimes I know can be a little uncomfortable, but it's an important conversation to have. And so NAREB is the oldest, make sure I got this right. And this thing's a little off.
I know, I'm really sorry about that.
We'll press through. So we're the oldest African American Real Estate Association. We were founded in 1947. When we were founded, some of you may or may not know, at that point in 1947, the NAR Code of Ethics did not allow African Americans to be in the organization. And so we started, like many black professional organizations, doctors, bankers, dentists, you name it. We created our own association. And so our motto is democracy and housing. And so we've been fighting that fight for many years, and unfortunately that struggle continues. Some of the things that we are involved with, right now we're working on a program called 2 Million Black Homeowner Program to help reduce the gap in home ownership. In March of this year, the U.S. Census put out its report. They put out home ownership statistics every quarter. I'm sure some of you may and some of you may not know that. And so in March, the black ownership rate nationally was 41%, and white ownership rate was 73%. So we are always working to turn that around, because as I'm sure this group knows, that home ownership is the #1 way that we reduce, that we accumulate wealth in America, right? Families are strengthened and improved by issue of home ownership. So I just want to talk a little bit about home ownership trends. As you can see, in 2004, the black home ownership rate peaked at 49%, right before, about 4 years before the crisis. Really important to note, as you can see, the white home ownership rate was way up there, well over 75% at that point, on its way to 80%. As you can see, it's not been that high since the crisis, and we'll talk a little bit about that. What you also, if that was going over, you would see that black home ownership, loans to African Americans over the last 4 years have been going up. They still are not at the pre-crisis level, but every year over the last 4 years since we started this campaign to increase the rate of black home ownership, it's gone up at least 2 to 3% in terms of originations every single year. One of the things that you will see in this report is that more non-banks are the source of mortgages originations for African Americans since the crisis. In fact, I was just reading an article while I was sitting here that was sent to me, that was in the New York Times yesterday, that the non-banks have represent about 52 to 53% of mortgage originations right now for everybody, black, white, etc. And so part of that reason is because of the restrictive underwriting from the crisis, and also the fear of many of the lenders, if they do one or two things wrong on a loan application or the defects in their loan application, the potential of getting cited by one of the federal regulatory agencies. And so you've had this kind of pulling back by many of the lenders. And so bank depository lenders, banks. And so what's happened is African Americans and many others have moved over to the non-bank lenders. So one of the things that we talk about home ownership is home ownership matters, right? We know it strengthens families, right? We know that people who own a home, they have higher educational outcomes, right? We also know that families are stronger when they own a house, right? Kids are less likely to get into trouble. We know that 40% of all small business owners start their business in a home. How many people are agents or brokers in the room? Okay, now how many of you run your business at least 50% of the time from your cell phone and from your house? Right? All right, how many people do something else as a small business beyond real estate? All right, and some of you probably do that from your home too, right? So owning a house is very important. We know people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and others all started in their home, some in their garage, right? Right? Even Dell's, Hewlett Packard started in the house. So the home is very, very important. And it's been well documented that people who have kids and they own a home, they have higher graduation rates and higher economic outcomes. So that's why NAREB is aggressively fighting to increase the rate of black home ownership. So this is a little sample of some of the markets. I'm originally from Buffalo. I live in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is the most economically affluent county in the United States of America for African Americans. Some of the towns, the median black household income is well over $100,000 a year. Median sales for houses are well over $275,000, $300,000, a lot of $1 million neighborhoods in Prince George's County. But our home ownership rate countywide is still not the average for white America. Meaning the average white household income home ownership rate was 73%. So we're even in the most affluent county in the United States of America, where there are lots of doctors, lawyers, small business owners, etc., we still have some work to do just to get to the white national average in the most affluent county. That's why we're fighting for home ownership, right? And we have black colleges, we have white colleges, we have, most of the judges are black, a lot of the franchises are African American, we only have black-owned hotels. However, the home ownership rate is still not over. So now we have some towns that are 70%, maybe 75%, but we have countywide some work to do. And so this just represents some of the numbers, some of the cities, what their home ownership, what some of the loan application flow is. And what you will find, and what we track every year in our State of Housing and Black America report, and I left some summaries out there and some other good materials on the table, we look at lending trends. Because nationally, based on some of the baked-in biases that have happened over time, the when African American applies for a loan, they're often denied 1.5 to 2 times the rate of a white applicant, even when they have similar credit scores and are similarly economically situated. And there's some reasons for that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And that's where you all can be helpful as well, because the demographics of America are rapidly changing. And the way real estate is being practiced, as you know, today, we do manual underwriting. Now it's digital, right? You used to fill out an application and a listing thing. Now you send it to them by a DocuSign or one of those other programs. So the same thing is going to happen with who we do business with, right? Over the next 20 to 30 years and sooner, every single day. So one of the things we do is we talk about communicating the importance of black home ownership. And I was just at a thing yesterday, and so one of the things we talk about is sustainable and affordable home ownership. We want people, like everyone else, to get in the house and stay in the house, because a good real estate professional understands that our success is not based on that one transaction, right? What's your name? Steve. Steve knows, how long have you been in real estate, Steve? 10 years. 10 years. So Steve knows that for him to be successful, it's not just selling that one house, but it's his ability to have that person have a good experience, right? And then they tell their cousin, their friend, their coworker, the person at church or the mosque or synagogue that they should become a homeowner too, right, Steve? So that's why we want to promote sustainable and affordable home ownership. We want to protect the American dream of home ownership. This is something that impacts all of us in the industry. Right now, there is a massive effort to promote rental. If you are now paying attention, if you think fighting Zillow and some of those other online things are a problem, you haven't seen anything yet. So helping African Americans and other minority groups become homeowners is important because they're building brand new houses now for people to rent. Did you all know that? That is rapidly taking place. Since the mortgage crisis, over almost 1 million houses were taken from African Americans and whites and Latinos and Asians, but disproportionately blacks, Asians, and Latinos, and now they're rental properties. And they securitize those rentals, which means that they'll probably be on a rental market for probably a good 20 years. Because once they securitize that, those investors want their money back. So we all have to have skin in the game about promoting home ownership for African Americans. We know it's the #1 way that we build wealth. We know that that's the #1 way that we transfer wealth. And we know that we cannot close the racial wealth gap in the U.S. without increasing the rate of black home ownership. Some of the things that we are focused on is making home ownership a top priority for public policymakers. One of the folks at the National Housing Conference, which is a national group, it's been around for a long time. They track that home ownership has not been talked about in the State of the Union for over 30 years. How many of you have ever watched the State of the Union? Any of you? This is a very good group of realtors, right? Right? You're supposed to be engaged, right? It's about, you said 800 or 900 people in your local association. So you are the what we call the conscious ones, those who are involved, who are engaged, know what to do and show up. So if you all can't not recall in the last 20 years hearing housing or home ownership in the State of the Union, that means we have some work to do, right? So what we're doing every day, ARIA, NAR, and NAREB, and NAREB, and a number of the other groups, we're trying to aggressively make home ownership a bigger priority. Extremely important. The other thing is we are pushing for loan level equality. Since the crisis, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the Federal Housing Finance Agency has added a lot of red tape that we document in our State of Housing and Black America report that disproportionately impacts African Americans. And so some of you may call it overlays when you put in a loan when your client puts in a loan application, right? It is properly called loan level price adjustments if they get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. How many people have had their clients get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan that's been purchased by them? Okay. So it's really important to note that there are folks like us who are always looking at these numbers every day. And so what we're simply saying is that we want loan level equality. The absence of hereditary, arbitrary class distinctions, biases that increase the rate of someone's mortgage. So Steve may have a client who buys a house. He may have two clients, right? Steve says they're buying a house in the same subdivision, right? Same subdivision. One client has to be black, one client happens to be white. One may be work at Target, and one may be a teacher in the schools here. They buy a similar house, same street, and he says, well, they both got a 3.5% mortgage, but they think they're both excited. When he asked the black client, how much are you going to pay over the life of your loan? The house is $225,000, which Susie says is probably about the average rate in the county. So they both get one about $300,000, but the black client over the life of that 30-year mortgage is going to pay $700,000, and the white client is going to pay $600,000. That's what we're talking about. Those details and the terms of the loan, which means that extra $100,000 that black client pays over that 30 years. How many think they can do something else with $100,000? Right? Send a kid to college, save some money for retirement, right? Maybe invest in some marketing for start up a new business, right? A lot of good things. Buy a summer home. A lot of things you can do. So that's what this fight is all about, is making sure that there's equality in that process. The other thing is that we are pushing for the American Dream Down Payment Savings Plan. Some of you may have heard of the 529 College Savings Plan, where you can save to send your kid to college, and if it's not even your kid, if it's a loved one or kid at your church or the community, you can donate to or contribute to that fund tax-free, right? We want to do that for home ownership, right? So that anyone who wants to help, you hear you get a grandkid that comes along, he's so pretty, he's so cute, and you go buy them a $100 life insurance. Anyone ever do that, right? You do that? So why not be able to have a new grandchild or kid, or some kid at your church, that parents may be struggling, and you say, one day I want you all to become a homeowner. Here's $500 that we're going to put in this account, and go on down to the local Liberty Bank, and we're going to open up you a American Dream Down Payment Savings Plan. So by the time that kid gets 25, 30, they'll have some money saved up over the next 20 years, 25 years to become a homeowner. That's what we're talking about. The last thing is, and I'll take my seat, is the non-bank financial institution accountability. Many of you have heard of, or may not have heard of, the Community Reinvestment Act. Very important, like the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, but it didn't have any teeth. Actually didn't have any teeth until 1988 when it was updated. But what they found in 1968 is that, yes, it became illegal to openly discriminate in housing, but people couldn't get loans. So they created the Community Reinvestment Act in 1977 that put all these other, and there were some other bills like the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and a few other things that came before the Community Reinvestment Act. But the point is, it forced financial institutions to be regulated and scored by federal agencies to ensure that they are providing mortgages and lending opportunities, small business lending opportunities in certain neighborhoods and to certain constituency groups. The issue here is that I just told you a few minutes ago that non-banks have exploded. Car loans, right? You know, a lot of non-banks provide car loans, right? We also know that a lot of non-banks provide mortgage loans. They don't fall under the Community Reinvestment Act. And then there's some other push and pull things about making sure that they get more oversight to protect the investors as well. I agree with that. Some of the non-bank institutions do a really good job, like Quicken Loans. They do a great job in terms of providing some services, and they're the top mortgage over the last 2 years. However, we always got to make sure that we level the playing field in terms of accountability, transparency, and what we expect lenders to look like, regardless if they're a bank or non-bank. So we just want to make sure that they're held accountable. Everyone is not doing a great job like Quicken Loans, and Quicken Loans may get a new CEO and goes a totally different direction, right? Because CEOs come in like you run an association, right? One president may do this, another president may do that, right? So we got to make sure we have that. So I just want to thank you, and I'll save my questions. I'll say when we have questions at the end, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful.